This is not a real job, Sarah. Mom's voice echoed through our suburban kitchen, mixing with the aroma of her signature Sunday roast, a weekly tradition she used as emotional leverage. StartupTech? What kind of company name is that? I clutched my job offer letter, the ink still fresh from Friday's printing. At 23 with a freshly minted business degree, I just landed my dream position at one of the most innovative tech startups in the country. It's a real company, Mom, I explained for what felt like the 100th time. They're revolutionizing how businesses handle digital transformation. The salary is competitive, the equity options are dash. Equity. Dad interrupted, looking up from his newspaper, the physical kind, because digital news wasn't trustworthy in his opinion. You mean worthless stock in a company that probably won't exist next year? They didn't understand. How could they? Dad had worked at Anderson Manufacturing for 30 years, climbing from junior accountant to CFO through what he called real work. Mom had built her HR career at the same company, believing that loyalty to one employer was the only path to success. The tech industry is different, I tried explaining. StartupTech is backed by major venture capital firms. Their founder, Alex Chin, is a visionary in digital dash. Chin. Dad's face reddened. You mean that 20-something kid who dropped out of college? Sarah, this is ridiculous. I've arranged an interview for you at Anderson. Junior accounting position, clear promotion path, real benefits. I looked down at my offer letter again. The salary was triple what Anderson's entry-level positions paid, not including the equity that could be worth millions if the company succeeded. But my parents saw only risk, only uncertainty. I don't want to be an accountant, Dad. I want to be part of building something new, something revolutionary. Revolutionary? Mom scoffed, aggressively chopping carrots. You know what's revolutionary? A steady paycheck. Health insurance. A retirement plan. StartupTech offers all of that plus dash. Plus nothing. Dad slammed his hand on the table. This is not up for discussion. You live in our house, you follow our rules. Either take the Anderson interview or find somewhere else to live. The kitchen fell silent except for the rhythmic thud of Mom's knife against the cutting board. My younger sister Emma watched wide-eyed from the doorway, probably wondering if she'd face the same ultimatum when she graduated next year. Fine, I said quietly, standing up. I'll find somewhere else to live. Don't be dramatic, Mom sighed. Just take the Anderson job. Work there for a few years, build a solid resume, then if you still want to play with startups dash. Play. I interrupted, my voice sharp. Is that what you think this is? A game? Well, what else would you call it? Dad demanded. These tech companies, they're not real businesses. They're fancy websites and empty promises. Anderson has been around for 50 years. That's stability. I pulled out my laptop, my weapon of choice in this old versus new battle. Let me show you something. I opened StartupTech's investor deck, the one that had made headlines in the tech world last month. This fancy website processed $2 billion in transactions last quarter. Their client list includes half the Fortune 500. And that kid who dropped out of college? He's worth more than Anderson's entire board of directors combined. But they weren't looking at my screen. They were looking at the clock, at their watches, anywhere but at the future I was trying to show them. The Anderson interview is Tuesday at 9 a.m., Dad said firmly. Don't be late. That night, I packed my belongings into my used Honda Civic, bought with internship money they'd insisted I should have saved. My startup salary wouldn't kick in for 2 weeks, but I had some savings and a friend's couch to crash on until I found an apartment. You're making a huge mistake, Mom called from the front door as I loaded the last box. Think about your future. I am thinking about my future, I replied. I'm just not thinking about it like it's 1990 anymore. My first day at StartupTech felt like stepping into the future my parents couldn't see. The office occupied 3 floors of a converted industrial building, all glass and steel and possibility. No cubicles, no corner offices, just open collaboration spaces and technology that made Anderson Manufacturing look like it was stuck in the Stone Age. Alex Chin, the founder my father had dismissed as a college dropout kid, turned out to be exactly the visionary I'd expected. During our first team meeting, he laid out a vision that made my parents' concept of stable employment seem almost quaint. We're not just building software, he explained, his energy infectious. We're creating the infrastructure for the next generation of business. Every company that doesn't adapt will become obsolete. Every corporation stuck in old methods will either transform or die. I thought of Anderson Manufacturing with its paper-based systems and rigid hierarchies. They were exactly the kind of company Alex was talking about. Dinosaurs who couldn't see the meteor coming. Over the next 6 months, I threw myself into the work. My business degree combined with a natural aptitude for technology made me valuable in ways Anderson never would have appreciated. I helped bridge the gap between our tech team's innovations and our clients' traditional business needs. Then came the project that would change everything. Sarah, Alex called me into his office one morning. You understand traditional corporate structures, right? Growing up with parents in old-school companies. I nodded, thinking of the countless Sunday dinners spent listening to Dad complain about quarterly reports and Mom's stories about HR policies from the 1980s. We're developing something new. A platform that helps traditional companies transition to digital operations. But we need someone who speaks both languages, tech and traditional business. Interested in leading the project. My heart raced. Project lead at 23? At Anderson, I'd still be sorting mail and dreaming of my first promotion. When do I start? The next year was a blur of coding sessions, client meetings, and breakthrough moments. Our platform, which we named TransformX, wasn't just successful, it was revolutionary. Companies that implemented it saw their efficiency increase by 300%. Their digital transformation, which usually took years, could now be accomplished in months. I worked 18-hour days, slept on the office couch, and loved every minute of it. My equity in StartupTech grew as the company's value skyrocketed. The worthless stock my father had mocked was now worth 7 figures and climbing. My parents, meanwhile, sent increasingly worried texts about job security and career stability. They didn't know I'd been promoted twice or that I now led a team of 30 people. They didn't know I'd bought a condo in the city, or that my risky career choice had made me a millionaire on paper before my 25th birthday. Then came the news that would turn everything upside down. Anderson Manufacturing filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Lisa, my analyst, reported during our morning meeting. They failed to adapt to digital markets. Their systems are obsolete, their processes are inefficient, and they're losing clients to more technologically advanced competitors. I stared at the report, a strange mix of vindication and sadness washing over me. Anderson Manufacturing, the stable company my parents had staked their careers on, was failing. The company they'd wanted me to join was crumbling because it had refused to see the future. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. Mom and Dad are freaking out. Anderson is laying off half the staff. HR and finance departments are first on the list. I looked out my office window at the San Francisco skyline, then at the TransformX interface glowing on my screens. Our platform could save companies like Anderson. We'd done it before. But the irony of potentially saving my parents' jobs with the technology they'd dismissed wasn't lost on me. Lisa, I called out. Pull up everything we have on Anderson Manufacturing. Financials, systems, structure, everything. Are we considering them as a client? She asked. I smiled, thinking of all those Sunday dinners, all those arguments about real jobs and stable careers. No, I replied. I think it's time for a different approach. 2 weeks after Anderson Manufacturing's bankruptcy announcement, I sat in my corner office reviewing their complete financial disaster. The company wasn't just failing, it was a textbook case of digital dinosaurs facing extinction. Their technology was 15 years outdated, their processes were manual when they should have been automated, and their market share had been eaten away by more agile competitors. The acquisition papers are ready, Alex said, leaning against my doorframe. After I'd presented my plan to buy Anderson Manufacturing, he'd been surprisingly supportive. Sure you want to do this? I looked at the documents on my tablet. Not paper, another difference between our world and theirs. StartupTech, now valued at $12 billion, would acquire Anderson Manufacturing for pennies on the dollar. But that wasn't the interesting part. Their entire executive team is resigning, Lisa reported, swiping through her analytics. Including the CFO and HR director. My parents. They didn't know it yet, but they'd be getting their termination notices tomorrow. 30 years of loyalty each, ended with a corporate letter and a modest severance package. What's the timeline? I asked, pulling up our implementation schedule. We can start digital transformation next week, Lisa replied. But we'll need experienced people who understand the old systems to help with the transition. Preferably someone from their finance department and someone from HR. I smiled, thinking of all those times my parents had insisted they knew best about corporate America. Post the job listings tonight. 2 positions: Transition Finance Manager and HR Integration Specialist. Requirements: extensive experience with traditional corporate systems, willingness to learn digital processes, and... I paused, enjoying the irony, must be comfortable working for a tech startup. Alex raised an eyebrow. You're going to make them apply to their daughter's company without knowing it's their daughter's company. They're going to apply to the company that's saving Anderson Manufacturing, I corrected. Whether they know who owns it is secondary. The next morning, as Anderson's employees received their termination notices, our job listings went live. By afternoon, my parents' resumes had landed in our HR system. Their cover letters were desperate attempts to prove they could adapt to modern business practices, the same practices they dismissed as playing with computers 2 years ago. Interview them tomorrow, I instructed our HR team. But I watch from the observation room. And no one mentions my name. The next day, I watched through one-way glass as my parents entered our ultra-modern office building. Mom's usual power suit looked outdated against our sleek decor. Dad's leather briefcase, the one he'd carried for 20 years, seemed like a relic from another era. Mr. and Mrs. Anderson, our HR director, greeted them. Welcome to StartupTech. I understand you're both from Anderson Manufacturing. Yes, Dad replied, trying to hide his discomfort with the open office layout and wall-to-wall technology. I was the CFO there for 15 years. And I led the HR department, Mom added, her eyes darting around the room as if searching for something familiar. We have extensive experience in corporate operations. Traditional corporate operations, the director corrected gently. Our methods here are different. I watched as they squirmed through questions about digital transformation, cloud computing, and artificial intelligence. Terms they dismissed when I tried to explain them 2 years ago now held their future in the balance. The positions you're applying for, the director continued, involve helping transition Anderson Manufacturing's old systems to our digital platform. Are you comfortable with that level of change? Mom straightened in her chair. We're very adaptable, she insisted, though I'd never seen her use a smartphone for anything more complicated than calling or texting. Absolutely, Dad agreed, his CFO mask firmly in place. We understand that business is evolving. I nearly laughed out loud. 2 years ago they'd called it playing. Now it was evolving. One final question, the director said, pulling up our company profile on the giant wall screen. What do you know about StartupTech's leadership? I chose that moment to enter the interview room, tablet in hand, watching as recognition and shock washed over their faces. Sarah. Mom's voice was barely a whisper. What are you? Why are you? Good morning, I said professionally, taking a seat at the head of the table. I'm Sarah Anderson, Executive Vice President of Digital Transformation at StartupTech. I'll be overseeing the Anderson Manufacturing acquisition and transition. Dad's face went through a fascinating series of color changes. Acquisition? Your company is buying Anderson. Yes, I replied, pulling up the details on the wall screen. Anderson Manufacturing's failure to adapt to digital markets made it an ideal acquisition target. We're implementing our TransformX platform, the one I developed, by the way, to modernize their operations. You developed. Mom's voice trailed off as she stared at the screen showing my credentials, achievements, and current net worth. The platform that could have saved Anderson if they'd adopted it 2 years ago? Yes. I swiped through more slides. The same technology you dismissed as playing with computers now powers digital transformation for over 200 Fortune 500 companies. The silence in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Our HR director, who'd been briefed about the situation, quietly excused herself. Why didn't you tell us? Dad finally asked, his CFO confidence completely evaporated. Tell you what? That the startup job you mocked made me a millionaire before I turned 25? That the worthless equity you laughed at is now worth more than your entire career earnings? Or that while you were clinging to your paper ledgers and manual processes, I was building the future? We were trying to protect you, Mom interjected, her HR training kicking in. We wanted you to have stability. Stability. I laughed, gesturing to the screens showing Anderson's collapse. How's that working out? The company you thought was stable is bankrupt. The career paths you insisted were safe are obsolete. The only thing stable in business today is change. I stood up, walking to the window overlooking our sprawling tech campus. But here's the thing, I'm not here to gloat. I'm here to offer you both something you never offered me, a choice. I placed 2 tablets on the table, not paper contracts, another point they'd have to adapt to. Option 1. You take the positions we advertised. Full benefits, competitive salary but no special treatment. You learn our systems, adapt to our methods and help transition Anderson manufacturing into the digital age. It'll be hard, it'll be humbling, and it'll mean admitting that everything you thought you knew about business needs to change. And option 2? Dad asked quietly. You walk away. Take your severance from Anderson, stick to what you know and try to find another company that still operates like it's 1990. Though I should warn you, they're becoming as rare as paper mail rooms and fax machines. Mom reached for one of the tablets with trembling hands. These salary figures, they're more than we made as executives. Because we value adaptation over tradition, I explained. Our janitors who can code make more than Anderson's mid-level managers. Welcome to the future you didn't want me to be part of. All those Sunday dinners, Dad said slowly, when you tried to tell us about digital transformation, you weren't just talking about a job, were you? I was trying to warn you. Every argument about real jobs and stable careers was a warning that you couldn't see. Now you have a choice. Learn what I was trying to teach you or become as obsolete as the systems you believed in. They looked at each other, 30 years of corporate certainty crumbling in the face of their daughter's success. If we take the jobs, Mom began cautiously, will you help us learn? I smiled, remembering all the times they'd refused to learn from me. That's the first smart question you've asked about technology. Yes, we have extensive training programs. Yes, we'll help you adapt. But you'll have to admit that everything you thought you knew about business needs to be reevaluated. And Sunday dinners? Dad asked, a hint of his old humor showing through. Will those include lectures about cloud computing now? Actually, I replied, they'll be held in my penthouse apartment. The one I bought with my worthless startup equity. And yes, there will be lectures. Consider it payback for all those times you lectured me about real jobs.